All right, great. You just got that opportunity. And now you're going to speak at a convention or some type of an event. There's an event going on where you're not just the solo speaker. There are a bunch of other speakers who are going to be there also. A bunch of things are going on. It may be for a conference. It may be for some sort of a series of events that happen through the day. It may be a commemoration of a special moment or a special time. And somehow you've been selected to go to this event, to this conference, to this thing, and present with a lot of other people around you. So what do? Now, a lot of speakers think, well, I'm going to a big event, and I don't want to blow it or screw up out there, so I'd probably better spend the whole day kind of locked in my hotel room just working over my speech over and over again to make sure I get it absolutely perfect and I nail the whole thing all the way through. And if you're thinking that, I've got some bad news for you. If right now, the day of the conference, you don't know your speech well enough to give it without 7 hours of practice, you're in big trouble. You're just in big trouble. Because it means you don't know your speech, and you might as well just give them the check back and say, sorry, I'm not ready for this. I don't know what you're going to do, but I know you'll never hire me again. That was a big mistake of yours, right? Sorry, can't do it. Not going to work out. Because I know what the heck I'm talking about. And of course you don't want that to happen. So presumably, you know what the heck you're talking about. Presumably, you've done the work, you've done the time, you've gone through, you know your speech, you've done it many, many times, you've done it well enough. Somebody out there and thought, wow, that's a great speech. I'd really like them to come to my conference and give that speech I heard. And that'll be the one you practice over and over and over again. That's what they want to hear. Great. So, you've already practiced the speech. You already know the speech. You've already kind of gone through it. You're thinking more like, well, what should I do here? What should I do here? What should I tweak? And that's really the state you should be in when you get to one of these conferences, one of these events. You should be thinking, okay, what really should I do for my speech? I mean, I've gotten it written and it seems to go okay, but how can I make it better? How can I tweak it? How can I make it really work for this audience? Because, of course, that's the challenge. How do you personalize the speech for that audience you're in front of? Now, here's a little pro tip. You personalize the speech for the audience in front of by being very aware of the audience you're going to be in front of. And the great thing about if you're going to a conference or some sort of event with other speakers is that you got a lot of things there that you could be doing something with. Maybe now you're wondering, Tim, what the heck do you mean doing something with? I mean, I'm at the conference, but I've got to, really focus my mind. My head should be into my speech. All about the speech, all about getting that speech down entirely. Once again, many speakers think that. But if you're at a conference and your head is entirely in your speech and you're just not aware of anything else, then you're going to give a remote, by the numbers, boring type of speech that just doesn't really connect or resonate. Maybe thinking, Tim, why is that? Why would the speech be a disaster if I'm working and focusing on my speech? And the answer is because if you're focused so much on your speech, you're in your head and you're not in your audience. The goal of every good speaker is to be in their audience. The reason people become nervous and scared and flustered on the stage and screw up is because they're in their head. They're all about this. And they're not aware of that. You don't want to do that. So what do? Now, fortunately, there's some things you can do. Some very simple things you can do at that conference or that event that'll put you ahead of the other speakers, or at least put you on level with the other speakers if they're smart enough to be doing these things too. Because every speaker should do it in any conference event they go to. Just to make sure they're prepared, make sure they know what's going on. So today you'll learn about, or at least have a refresher course for the things you really ought to be aware of if you're giving a speech at some sort of conference or some sort of event. Okay, as mentioned, you're at the conference, you're at the event. It's great. Fine. And what a lot of speakers do, and maybe you've been tempted to do this, is you're thinking, okay, I've got to remember my speech and where am I? And they get that listing of all the different speakers that are involved, and they say, okay, here I am, and they start taking a look over their bio. Do they print everything right? And is everything here okay? And oh man, they misspelled that, and they didn't quite get that thing right. And you start freaking out and thinking, oh man, they don't know quite what's going on here, and they really don't understand who I am, and they didn't quite get this quote right. It's not really going to work out, and I see where I am. Oh man, I'm fifth, or I'm fourth, or I'm third, or I'm second, or I'm first, or whatever number it is in the list. You start freaking out about that. Like, oh man, I'm on this list, and here I am. It's not the greatest position. Here first is not so great, because then everybody, basically they've heard it, and then they benchmark against you, and if you didn't do that well, then it's not really good, and they forget about you. And last is awful, because you're the last thing there, and maybe they'll remember it, if you do really well, but if you don't, they're going to really remember it. If you're in the middle, you just get lost in the sea of speakers. They got 15 speakers going on, and none of it's going to work, and you start freaking out, thinking, oh man, here I am in the speech, and here I am trying to get all this stuff done, and you just really freak out about this sort of stuff. And many speakers do that. They get to an event, or they get to the conference, and they start psyching themselves out immediately based on where they are in the thing and what's going on, and their whole world becomes around, oh, what sort of level am I, and what sort of things are going on, and oh man, I've got to go after this event, or that's a killer, that guy's fantastic, and they just think about that. It's entirely focused on themselves. And the great thing about a conference is the one chance you have as a speaker to focus outside yourself. It's so easy to focus outside yourself at a conference or an event. You may be wondering, Tim, why is it so easy to focus outside yourself at a conference and an event? It's because there's so much stuff going on. So much stuff going on everywhere. But many speakers don't see it. They just don't get it. They don't understand it. They're like, oh, okay, I'm working on my thing, and I've got to get my thing. They shut their hotel door, and they're just working all the way through their different stuff and trying to figure out, okay, what line am I use here? And is this line going to work? Is that line going to work? And they forget about one of the most important sources they have for good lines in their speech is all around them. At the conference and the event. What they really ought to be doing is simply watching what goes on. That's right, watching the event. And just watching the people. Watching what happens, watching their reactions. Watching some of the big issues. Watching what people do. What do people do at this event? You got to be walking around thinking, okay, what are the people here really doing? What's really going on there? And watch them closely. Now don't get pervy. Because if you get pervy and start staring at people all the time, that security's going to come and drag you right out of there. So don't do that. But just casually, not offensively, watch people and think, what's that person doing there? Why are all these people doing this? And what sort of patterns are there? And just ask yourself questions. What sort of patterns are going on here? What sort of behavior is going on here? What are people really interested in doing? What are people really focusing their time and event in doing? And watching the other presenters too. Instead of just being outside and just kind of saying, oh, well, practicing my speech. Go inside and think, what's that guy doing? And what's that guy doing? What's the audience doing in reaction to that guy? And what really worked in terms of how the person was set up on stage? What was kind of strange about the way people were set up there on stage? What was kind of strange? What's the first thing you think the audience might be thinking when they see these people on stage? Or is there any sort of theme running through things? Sort of theme that fits everything together? So watching is very important. Watching what goes on, thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I can see what these people are doing, what they're doing, how it all fits together. That's great. However, watching alone isn't enough. Watching is great, but it's not quite enough. There's something else, a couple other things you want to think about doing. Fortunately, watching leads to this next thing. But watching alone won't do it. There you are, at the conference, at the event, and you're watching. Not creepily, but just watching. Looking at people and noticing, yeah, I see that, I see what's going on. And that's great. And you can watch. And you learn a lot of things watching. Just watching and thinking, okay, yeah, what are they doing? What's going on? Yeah. But the thing about it is, if you just watch, then you're missing out on something also really important. Because people are going around there, certainly they're watching the event, but they're doing something else. Doing something else that's more involved. It's easy to go around the event, and sometimes these events or conferences can become so visual, so incredibly visual. You're just blown away. You've got like a screen of this and a screen of that and a flashing thing over here and a flashing thing over there. Sometimes you think just watching is going to take up your entire time. It's like watching, go from one incredible site to another incredible site. Like if you're fortunate enough to play Vegas or do something anywhere in Vegas. And all these flashing stuff is going on, all these incredible things going on. Wow, look at all the sights, look at all this stuff going on. And you get really caught up in that. It's easy to do. Or you see something really interesting, you start really looking at it. Yeah, great. And that's fine. But that alone won't be enough. See, it's very easy to get so caught up in what you're seeing because we're a visual society. First things people do is they go out and take pictures of themselves where they are. Selfies. Just take a picture of themselves. Ah, here I am over here, and here I am over here, and here I am over here. Visual. All very visual. Because people are focused in on that. In fact, your entertainment of TV and the computer and YouTube and all these things are all very, very aware of the visual element. The importance of the visual element. And capturing people's attention. That's great. And as you walk around, you can see these sort of things. But again, there's something there that's not quite being paid attention to. And as you go around and you see things, if you leave this out, it's sort of like, well, yeah. And the audience, when they hear your speech, if you're putting visual things in, say, yeah, visual things, okay. Great, you were noticing some visual things going on. What else you got? Because the visual notice here or there isn't going to carry you all the way through. That's great. But it's not really going to carry you all the way through. Because in addition to seeing things, there's another really important sense you have to use at these events, these conferences. And that is, you want to make sure you're also listening. Yeah, watching, but also listening, and really listening, not just hearing, like, okay, there's a bunch of noise going on, but really listening. And that means you want to listen to the other people who are speaking. Listen to the other people who are speaking. Get up there and speak, because they will say things. And the audience will react to things. And you will discover some of the things that speakers say are really powerful, really important, and get the audience thinking. And the greatest thing is if somebody gets up there and says something really fantastic, and you're thinking, boy, I wish I had said that. The great thing is you can say that. All you have to do is reference the speaker that everybody just saw and everybody loved and call it back. It's called a callback. Say, well, as you remember in John Smith's speech, burgers aren't for everyone. Now, I don't know what that meant. But if I'd been there watching John Smith's speech and he'd said burgers aren't for everything in the context of his speech, I would understand it. The audience would understand it. Everybody would have gotten it. Say, yeah, that was a pretty good remark. So you can customize your presentation by paying attention, by listening to what happened, to what went on, to what occurred at these events. And by listening to that and really paying attention to it, then you really customize everything. And you take things to a whole new level. So watching and listening will get you most of the way. Just watch and listen. Watch what's going on. Listen to what's going on. That's good. Because the audience is watching and listening with you, and so you mention things like, oh, yeah, that guy gets it. That gal gets it. They understand. But there's still one more thing. You can go even deeper than watching and listening. Do one more thing. All right, there you are at the event, and you're watching. You're watching everything that's going on in a very non-creepy way. Everything. Checking out, say, oh, look at that, and oh, look at that over there, and oh, look at that over there. You just keep watching and watching and noticing little things. Oh, that was an interesting thing. That was an interesting there. There's all the flash and all the visuals going on around. You think, oh, yeah, okay, check that out. And you're listening. You're listening. You say, oh, that was an interesting comment. Oh, that was an interesting thing. That was interesting there. Yeah, that was good. Interesting remark overheard in the hall. Remark I saw over here. Now, when you do hear interesting remarks by people, you can ask those people and say, is it okay if I mention what you said? And ask them if you mention by name, if it's something positive. Don't quote people doing embarrassing things. That's no good. Just quote people doing things that you thought was interesting and helpful and great and really makes them look good. Quote your audience, people in your audience looking good. That's what you want to do. But listen. Listen to what they say. And as you're listening and paying attention, that's great. That's fine. Because you're watching, you're listening, you're saying, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I get it. But again, it's sort of like listening is kind of like watching. It's easy to get kind of caught up in that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm watching, I'm listening, and that's fine as far as it goes. And it'll get you pretty far. Get you pretty far. Watching and listening will get you pretty far along the way. But as you start watching and listening, and you start mentioning things you've watched and listened to, those audience might start thinking, yeah, okay, but who is this guy? Who is this gal? I mean, they've just been kind of around, listening and watching like some sort of creepy Fed person, like an FBI kind of investigator sort of thing. Just, ha! I caught you. I saw you. I heard you. You didn't think I did, but I heard it all. I saw it all. Gotcha. Well, not the effect you want to create as kind of a watcher, listener, creepy person. So something else you can do. Take it a little bit farther. Maybe you're thinking, Tim, how else can I take it farther? I mean, I'm watching what goes on. I'm listening to the things that happen. I mean, that's pretty good, right? I mean, I'm watching, I'm listening, and that's pretty good. Well, what else can you really do? And watching and listening are good things. And mentioning in my speech will go a long way. And you probably could just do that. But if you really want to push it over the edge, think about participating. Participating. I mean, it's beyond just watching things. Oh, yeah, I'm watching it. Oh, yeah, I'm hearing what the guy says. But actually participate. If there are activities that the speaker is doing, take part in those activities. If there's an event going on, a luncheon or some other such event, go to the luncheon. Go to the event. As much as possible, try to participate and really get involved with this conference, with this event. So you really understand it from the inside out. You really get it. Not only do you study it, hopefully, before you even get to the thing. When you get there, it's like, oh, okay. Here's the thing. And you participate. You find out who are the people who are the key movers and shakers, and you introduce yourself to them, and get involved with them, and figure out what's really important, and how you can help out, and see what sort of things you can do to help out, and just really get involved in the deeper level of participation. Because it's easy to just go to a speech and just kind of listen and then watch and say, oh yeah, okay. But to really participate in that speech, to become a part of an active participant, takes a whole new level of involvement, a whole new level of really getting into something. And when you do that, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Participation, strong, powerful, active participation will take you over the edge. People say, wow, you watched it and you listened to it. And I remember seeing you at those events. Yeah, you were that guy, you were that gal who was doing the, yeah, that's pretty, you were really involved there. And if you can get involved in these things, really involved in these things, become kind of a mover and shaker of the event, of the conference, that's a pretty good place to be. Especially if they think of anyone who they want to call back and they say, well, there was that speaker who was like everywhere doing everything. Gotta have that guy back. Gotta have that gal back. And that'll be you. It's an honor, of course, to get invited to a conference or an event and to be on a list of various speakers they have for the thing. But you can be so obsessed about being kind of buried amongst all these speakers that you forget about really how you get the most out of your speech and really use the event to get the most out of your speech. Use the conference to get the most out of your speech. And one thing to think about is really listening, really watching. Watching. First watch. Just watch what goes on. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. And it could be things that go on even outside of where the speakers are. Things that are going on just in the audience, milling around outside the doors. People getting into the hall can be interesting to watch. And as you're watching, think, okay, yeah. What are these people doing? What are the common challenges they're having? What is the situation they're facing? What is something everybody kind of understands and is seen over and over again? What do they really get? And if there's something dramatic, some sort of display, what is that dramatic display? What is it everybody's looking at? What everybody's seeing there? What's some visual? Everybody just understands, oh yeah, I know that, I've seen that. Yeah, of course. Of course. Once you do the watching, remember to listen. Listen. So listen to the different conversations going on outside. People saying as they're going back and forth. In general, you can make a comment on your speech in general what people are saying. Or something specific that's really funny or clever or interesting. Ask somebody's permission who you hear it from, if you can use it in your speech. And then ask them if you can reference them in front. It's going to be something complimentary, or at least it'll make them look good. And then you can use that in your speech. Listen to the other speakers. What are the things they're saying? One great thing is the speakers are saying something really powerful, really interesting. You can call back to that. You can say, as you heard in Bob Smith's speech, hey, burgers are great. And the audience will understand that, and they'll call back to that moment of Bob Smith's speech, and then you'll get all the power that Bob Smith had into your speech, just like that. And then finally, don't forget to participate. Watching and listening are great, but you must also participate. Simplest thing to do is if you have a speaker and they're asked the audience to do an activity, do the activity. As you watch and listen to the speaker and you just start doing the activity, whatever it is, create a story or whatever they're focusing on, and think, oh, okay, what is my experience doing this? What are the challenges see other people working on? What are the things I'm getting out of this? What are the things other people might get? How could this thing apply to the speech that I'm giving? And other participations, if there's a lunch event, if there's some sort of food thing going on, go to that. Talk with other people there. Find out the movies and shakers are. Really participate and get to know people there, what they're really interested in, what they're doing. Get really involved in it. You're doing all that, you can be a pretty good conference and event speaker. Because sure, it's an honor to be there at a conference, be there at an event. But if you get so caught up in what order you're in, or the fact that there's so many different speakers, or your speech topic and then how your speech topic fits into things, you get all in your head. You forget about your audience. You don't want to do that. Always be aware of your audience. To make that happen, all you need to do is to pay attention. Well, if you don't pay attention, you go to the event and you're like, I don't really care what's happening here. I want to focus on my speech. When you get up on stage, you're like an alien. People are like, did he even go to this conference event? He seems to have no idea what's going on. Did she even attend this thing? Did she just pop in at the last moment just in order to say something? I mean, has she even been here? But if you watch, listen, and participate, people are like, oh yeah, that guy, I remember. That gal, yeah, sure. She was around a lot, she was paying attention, listening to things, and she was at that lunch event, she introduced herself to everybody, she was saying things, it's funny, she was entertaining, I liked her. Then you get this rapport, so it's connection with this audience. And the great thing is in your speech, you have all sorts of places in your speech. Just stick little things in your speech as you go through that really help you have things deeper, stronger, more powerful connection with your audience. So remember, When you go to an event or conference you're invited to, don't just stay in your hotel room and get stuck up in your head. Go out into the event, into the conference, watch, listen, and participate.